and add the chapter and verse numbers for those occurrences, the total is 4,408, or 19 times 232. 17. The Quran is mentioned a total of 58 times, but one of them refers to a Quran other than this which the disbelievers demanded. So the actual Appendix 95b of references to the actual book the Quran is 57 or 19 times 3. 18. Within the 114 chapters of the Quran, 29 of them are prefixed with certain letters of the Arabic alphabet, or Quranic initials. Intermixed between the first initial chapter, chapter 2, and the last initial chapter, chapter 68, there are 38 non-initial chapters, or 19 times 2. 19. In this same group of chapters, from chapter 2 to chapter 68, there are 19 alternating sets of initialed and non-initialed chapters. 20. The total number of verses making up this group of chapters is 5,263, 19 times 277. 21. Within this group of chapters there are also 2,641 occurrences of the word Allah, or 19 times 139. That leaves 57, or 19 times 4, occurrences of that word outside of this group. 22. If you add the chapter and verse numbers of the 57 occurrences of Allah outside the initialed sectarian, the total is 2,432, or 19 times 128. Quranic initials. 29 chapters of the Quran begin with letters or groups of letters. For centuries Muslim and 96 direct contact Orientalist scholars have proposed theories about their meaning. In the 1960s Rashad Khalifa, a Muslim scientist and computer expert, began computerized analysis of the Quran to try to determine their significance. Rashad Khalifa originally theorized that those initials occurred with greater frequency within their respective chapters. Indeed, he found this to be true in all cases except chapter 36. The initials of that chapter, Y and S, the Arabic letters Ya and Sin, occur in lower frequency than in the rest of the Quran. Further study of the data eventually brought the discovery that all of the initials occur in patterns explained below, which could be reduced to multiplaces of the number 19. Khalifa came to refer to this patterning as the mathematical code of the Quran. These initials exhibit many aspects of that code, when looked at as individual sets, and when looked at together. Let us begin by looking at the single letter initials. The first one we will examine is the initial, which has the English transliteration of Q. Appendix 97. The initial Q. QAAF. There are several special phenomena having to do with the initial Q. Perhaps it can be seen as standing for Quran. This is especially so since there are 2 Q initial chapters, each with 57 19 times 3 Qs in them. Thus the total of Qs in both chapters is 114 19 times 6, the same number as the number of chapters in the Quran. The fact that both Q initial chapters contain exactly 57 Qs is quite remarkable, because the first of them, chapter 42, is more than twice as long as the second, chapter 50. Another remarkable phenomenon is found by adding chapter numbers of the Q initial chapters with the number of verses in those chapters. Chapter 42 has 53 verses. 42 plus 53 is 95, 19 times 5. If we look at the other Q initial chapter, 50, it has 45 verses. 50 plus 45 is also 95. Khalifa's idea that Q might stand for the Quran is strengthened by discoveries made after his assassination. Submitter's perspective, Masjid Tucson, December, 1990. When you look at the chapters between and inclusive of the Q initial chapters, chapters 42 and 53, there are some inter 98 direct contact testing facts. First, the total number of Qs occurring in that group of chapters is 456, or 19 times 24. Also, the total number of verses in these 9 chapters is 403. Adding this number to the sum of the chapter numbers, 414, yields 817, or 19 times 43. Then, if you look at the geometrical value of the initials in the verses containing initials for those chapters, the total is 570, or 19 times 30. Finally, let us examine the chapter and verse numbers for the 6 occurrences of the word Quran in those chapters: 42, 7, 43, 3, 43, 31, 46, 29, 47, 24 and 50. 1. When you add just the unique chapter numbers, 42 plus 43 plus 46 plus 47 plus 50, the total is 228, or 19 times 12. Likewise, when you add the verse numbers, 7 plus 3 plus 31 plus 29 plus 24 plus 1, the total is 95, or 19 times 5. The initial n. Noon. This initial prefixes only one chapter, number 68. Chapter 68 is the last initial chapter. In the case of this one initial only, the letter's name is spelled out in the Arabic noon wa noon. The total number of occurrences of n in this chapter, including the two occurrences in the initial's name, is 133, or 19x7. Appendix 99. The initial s. Sa'd s prefixes 3 chapters, 7, 19 and 38. The total number of occurrences of s in these 3 chapters is 152, or 19 times 8. At this point it should probably be mentioned that Dr. Khalifa could not ignore the implications of the mathematical structure in the Quran, which clearly demands strict adherence to the Quran. And, as we saw at the beginning of this appendix, strict adherence to the Quran means a rejection of any traditional Muslim teachings that are not based directly on the Quran as sources of religious guidance. The fury of the traditional clergy at Khalifa's conclusions and his straightforward statement of them eventually led to his assassination. It should not be surprising, then, that those same clergy have attacked the discoveries. Most of these attacks have been focused on the Quranic initials, and one of their major arguments is with the Sa'd. This is because in modern copies of the Quran the Arabic word bastardan is written with a Sa'd, rather than sin. This would increase the count of Sa'd by 1, and it would no longer be 100 direct contact divisible by 19. But the oldest available copy of the Quran, the Tashkent copy, writes bastardan with a sin. Drive. Khalifa includes a reproduction from the Tashkent copy in his translation Quran. The Final Testament, 1989, p. 614. In most cases, the initials occur in sets. Next, we will examine some of those sets. The initials, YS. Yasin. These two initials are found at the beginning of chapter 36. The number of times these two letters appear in this chapter is 285, or 19 times 15. The Quran uses two different forms of Y, one of which is very subtle and difficult for non-Arabic readers to distinguish. Drive. Khalifa's book, Quran. Visual presentation of the Miracle Islamic Productions, 1982, shows every Y and S marked in the Arabic text of chapter 36. The initials, HM. Hamim. This set of initials is found initializing the 7 consecutive chapters 40 through 46. The total number of occurrences of these two initials in these chapters is 2147, or 19 times 113. Appendix 101. The initials, A, SQ. Ein Qaf. Chapter 42 is the only chapter with a set of initials HM in the first verse and another A, SQ in verse 2. Of course, the H's and M's figure in the counts for HM, as mentioned above. The number of times the letters of the second set of initials, A, SQ occur in chapter 42 is 209, or 19 times 11. The initials, ALM. Aleph Lam Mim, A, is the most common letter in Arabic, La is the second most common, and M, is the third most common. This combination of initials prefix 6 chapters, 2, 3, 29, 30, 31 and 32. In every one of these 6 chapters, the total number of occurrences of A's, L's and M's is divisible by 19. Of course, this means that the total number of occurrences of these initials in the 6 chapters is divisible by 19. The initials, ALR. Aleph Lam Ra. These initials prefix chapters 10, 11, 12, 14 and 15. Again, in each of these chapters the total number of A's, L's and R's is divisible by 19. 102 direct contact initials, ALMR, Aleph Lam Mim Ra. This group of initials prefixes only chapter 13. Their total combined frequency in that chapter is 1482, or 19 times 78. Initials, ALMS. Alam Lam Mim Sa'd. Chapter 7 is the only chapter prefixed by this combination of initials. The total number of occurrences of these letters in this chapter is 5320, or 19 times 280. Note that the initial Sa'd also interacts with the Sa'ds of chapters 19 and 38 to produce a total of Sa'ds which is divisible by 19. See the discussion of the initial Sa'd above. Initials, KHYA, S. Kaf Haya, Ein Sa'd. This longest set of initials begins chapter 19. The total number of occurrences of these initials in that chapter is 798, or 19 times 42. Appendix 103. Initials, H. Ha, TH. Taha, TS, Tarsin, and TSM. Ta Sin Mim. These remaining four groups of initials have an interlocking and overlapping relationship that produces a combined total of 1767, or 19 times 93. Mathematical properties of the initialed SURAS as a whole half of the Arabic alphabet, or 14 letters, are combined in various ways to make up 14 different sets of initials. These 14 sets initialize 29 different chapters. If you take the geometrical value of each of the 14 different letters occurring as initials and sum them, you get 693. Add to that 29 for the number of chapters and you get 722, or 19 times 19 times 2. Also, if you add the geometrical values of each initial 693 again to the chapter numbers where each first occurs totaling to 295, you get 988, or 19 times 52. For example, Aleph has the geometrical value of 1 and first occurs in chapter 2. Ha has the 104 direct contact geometrical value of 5 and first occurs in chapter 19. Proceeding in this manner for all 14 initials gives you the total of 988. You will find more of these relationships in Rashad Khalifa's appendix, along with tables illustrating them. There is one more fact that must be included here. For each initial chapter, take the chapter number, add the number of Quranic initials which prefix it, and then add the number of verses containing initials. This number will be 1 for all chapters except 42, which has initials in 2 verses. As an example, the first initial chapter is chapter 2. It has 3 Quranic initials which occur in 1 verse. When we add 2 plus 3 plus 1 we get 6. Let us call this total the chapter total. When you sum all the chapter totals for the initial chapters you get 931, or 19 times 49. This in itself is amazing enough, but there is more. If you multiply the chapter number by the number of initials instead of adding them, and then add the number of verses containing initials, you still get a grand total that is a multiple of 19 20 52, or 19 times 108. You can illustrate for yourself how remarkable this is by trying to duplicate it. You will see that this definitely is not a mathematical property, and clear lie indicates divine arrangement. Appendix 105 Conclusion. We began this discussion with the question of whether we should follow the Quran alone, or also follow the traditional sectarian practices of today's Islam, which run contrary to it. Even the most ardent supporter of Hadith and Sunnah must agree that it is impossible to absolutely authenticate even one of the traditions. The Quran, on the other hand, is the only scripture known to still exist in its original language and form. It has been guarded by a mathematical encoding, the complexity and inclusiveness of which becomes more and more evident with continuing research. Further reading. Appendix 1, Quran. The Final Testament, Rashad Khalifa Translator, Universal Unity, 1992, pages 375 to 403. Beyond Probability. God's Message in Mathematics, Abdullah Arak, Monotheist Productions International, 1992. Quran. Visual Presentation of the Miracle, Rashad Khalifa, Islamic Productions, 1982. The Computer Speaks. God's Message to the World, Rashad Khalifa, Renaissance Productions International, 19